model is that?
Ever since the creation of power armors in the Fallout world, players have had the joy of stepping into these absolute units and relishing their sheer strength. The power infantry armor was initially created before the Great War when the bombs dropped, but now it's a crucial piece of equipment needed in the Wasteland, as one could be caught dead without it. In the games, players would now have to earn their power armors usually bestowed by the Brotherhood of Steel. We got a fresh look at this bulky armor in the newest Fallout TV show. A few minor spoilers ahead. In this marvelous video, we will take a deep dive into the anatomy of power armors. Let's explore those credited for its creation, what it was initially used for, and the enhancements it gives the operators. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. What does power armor look like? At first glance, a generic power armor suit comes in two essential components: the frame, an exoskeleton that players need to climb into. Second, the armor components consist of arms, legs, torso, and helmets. Over the years, the energy sources for these power armors have evolved. The most recent game installment, Fallout 4, requires a fusion core for the armor to function optimally. To sum it up, a sturdy exoskeleton that provides structural support, built-in power systems to run suit functions, enhanced mobility systems, and life support systems are all essential to an optimally operated power infantry armor. We'll break down each of these functions after exploring the history of power armors from the very first model.
So they say will be a lovely day.
It's time for a history lesson, or a recap for players who are still vague on the lore behind the Sino-American War, aka where it all began, and the world nearly ended. The year was 2065, and amidst the cutthroat resource wars, the US military struggled to maintain their vast fleets of combat vehicles. The US military commissioned a few defense contractors, like Westtech and Big MT Research Facility, to counter this. The companies began creating the very first mobile weapon platforms. These mechanized cavalry suits allowed soldiers to operate heavy weaponry while retaining their mobility. By 2066, the military had seen a series of unsuccessful development attempts, but still made progress in military science and fusion technology. The states revealed their first cold fusion power cell to the rest of the world. This further threatened the great communist superpower, the People's Republic of China, which heavily relied on fossil fuels. Tensions intensified when the US refused to share its fuel reserves, which forced China to invade Alaska and seize the oil fields of the Trans-Alaskan Pipeline. The first sets of power armors were rapidly developed in 2066 and deployed onto the Alaskan battlefield by 2067. The fresh T-45 models managed to hold their own and defended the front lines against Chinese forces. The T-45 power armor proved to be revolutionary, forever changing the trajectory of war, but not without its setbacks. Being cumbersome and lacking mobility, the Chinese developed their own version of the power armor, which was called the Communist Power Armor or the People's Power Armor. To supersede this development, the US military ordered Westtech to create lethal pulse guns, and eventually the power armor frame. Westtech became the most prominent defense contractor for the US military and began their project for the next generation of power armor. While these were being developed, the T-45D symbolized the enduring might of the Americans, just touching the lines of efficiency in battle. However, this was countered in 2074 when the T-45D power armor units invaded mainland China. The cavalry and infantry divisions proved to be inadequate against the larger, evolved Chinese forces, who retaliated with advanced weaponry. The next generation of power armors had been in development for years, and they went through several retcons, alterations, and setbacks. Until June 2076, the T-51B suits entered mass production and were deployed in China. The upgraded power suits turned the tides of the war. Soldiers could move more fluidly and deal twice the amount of damage. The T-51B became the standard issue power suits, being sent to the Alaskan front lines as well. While the People's Liberation Army hastily retreated, the T-51B cavalry was used to reclaim Anchorage, Alaska. The T-60 power armors were simultaneously developed alongside the Anchorage reclamation. The US government also decided to employ the power suits to police the troops due to the rising riots and food shortages among the citizens. The People's Republic of China were cornered by the deployed T-51B units and decided to retaliate with nuclear weapons of mass destruction. The global thermonuclear Great War took place in 2077, and the old world perished. The fallout that followed paused all technological advancements, and salvaged T-51 and T-60 armors were utilized by groups like the Brotherhood of Steel and the Enclave. The Enclave's research and development division sought to build on the T-51B models nearly 150 years after the Great War. The Enclave created the first prototypes of the X-01 power suits, and built variations of several advanced power armors, like the Advanced Power Armor Mk2, and the next generation of Enclave Hellfire armors. What kinds of power armor are there, and how many are there? All power armors developed in the United States share the same foundation and basic designs. It's fascinating to study the evolution of power armor from a rudimentary bulky suit to lightweight armor made from advanced strength materials. A few functions all power armors have in common are the exoskeleton, or frame, and an internalized servo motor system which enhances strength and resistance. All power armors also protect from radiation. The wearer climbs up into the armor and takes command of the controls, which steer the hands and legs. The basic model of every suit is designed with the term Model A or Mark I. Upgraded or refined versions of the suit are thus referred to as Model B, C, D, and E, or Mark II, III, IV, and V, and so on. Let's count down all the different types of power armors created by various powers over the years. T-45 Power Armor. Developed in 2067, the T-45 was the first ever set of power armor created by Westech as a response to the Chinese invasion of Alaska. These suits also required an external frame, which was developed around the same time. This cavalry of armors was deployed at impressive speeds, being sent out merely 2 years after their conception. The single soldiers operating these power suits were able to slow the Chinese attacks, countering their tanks and infantry. Due to rapid deployments, quite a few stopgap models existed on the battlefield. Various components of the T-45 model needed improvement, such as the riveted metal plates, exposed mechanical systems, insufficient power usage, and reduced mobility. The wearer was also required to equip themselves with an Under Armour bodysuit at all times. Still, the T-45 model paved the way for many generations of power armors to come. T-51 Power Armor. The T-51 Power Armor was stuck in development cycle for more than 10 years. Several prototype models of the T-51 suits were being tested in combat simulations at Fort Strong. This brought to light several functions that needed troubleshooting. One of these was unstable mobility. The wearers of the T-51 prototypes tended to trip over when they landed after jumping from high heights. After countless upgrades and improvements, the T-51 Power Armors were ready for battle in 2076. The T-51 suits were significantly lighter, as they were made up of polylaminate composites. It gave the wearers a great range of movement and could absorb over 2,500 joules of kinetic impact. The reclamation of Anchorage was led by General Constantine Chase, who utilized the brute strength of the T-51B power suits. Other than the US military, the pre-war Appalachian company named Grafton Steel launched Project Phoenix, which oversaw the development of their own variation of the T-51 power armor. T-60 Power Armors. After the reclamation of Anchorage, the United States regained their footing in the war, but the worry of another invasion led to the hasty production of a new variant of the T-45 suits, named the T-60 Power Armors. The T-60s were deployed to the front lines as the National Guard, which protected the nation for the sake of its civilians. The T-60 was considered the optimal combination of the T-45 and T-51 models of power armors. The T-60 Cavalry also acted as the country's domestic peacekeeping force. The wearers of T-60 could be more agile, without being restricted by a cumbersome suit. T-60 is most popularly featured in Fallout 4, as the standard issue armor by the East Coast Brotherhood of Steel. T-65 Power Armor. The US government had become used to potency and wished to develop their already robust T-60 armors further. This resulted in the creation of the T-65 models, also known as the Secret Service Power Armors. A few years prior to the Great War, civilian unrest was at its highest. Food shortages and riots broke across the nation. The Appalachian miners went on several strikes, which halted the production of necessary resources. Amidst all the duress, the government prioritized the safety of the president from covert rebellions such as the Free States Movement. A highly protective power armor, the T-65 was mainly built to police the citizens. Its design principle was entirely different, with multiple layers of armored material covering the torso and pauldron areas. So the T-65 protected areas that would otherwise expose the frame, or Under Armour bodysuits characteristic of other PA models. X-01 Power Armor. Players often debate the precise time of the creation of the X-01 Power Armors. However, the majority believe that the development of the X-01 Power Armor began before the Great War. Its production was commissioned by the Joint Chiefs of the clandestine group known as the Enclave. However, this production was also rushed due to the increasing threat of nuclear assault. Organizations like Nuka-Cola and the Commonwealth Institute of Technology were given a few models to advance the power suits. The Enclave also stored blueprints for future developments in their White Spring bunker facilities. After the Great War, a presidential mandate in 2215 created the first post-war power armor. The X-01 was unlike any other power armor that existed so far, with auto-gyro stabilization and motion-assist servo motors. Along with internal recycling systems, the whole suit was made of lightweight but durable metal alloys. Advanced Power Armor Mark I. An official post-war armor built by scientists of the Enclave oil rig was also the standard issue for their soldiers. The Mark I, or MK1 for short, was a significant upgrade from the X-01, with decades of research improving it. The Enclave used their advanced MK1 power armor's arsenal to instill fear throughout the American wasteland and establish their stature in a post-apocalyptic society. The MK1 power suits were made of metal alloys supplemented by ceramic casts, protecting essential areas. It's pretty similar to the X-01 power armor designs, with its improved motion assist servo motor systems. Naturally, it made the wearer highly resistant to radiation and damage. Advanced Power Armor Mark II, or MK2. The number of MK1 suits dwindled when the oil rig was destroyed. Enclave President John Henry Eden ordered the development of the MK2 power suits, also known as X-02 and the Black Devil power armors. The MK2 replaced the MK1 as the official field uniform of Enclave soldiers. As an advanced variant of its predecessor, the MK2 was made entirely of sleek ceramic castings that offered advanced protection. After the events of the game Fallout 2, the Enclave dove into the mass production of MK2 power armors at Raven Rock. Hellfire Power Armor. The Hellfire suit was a very special prototype developed by the Enclave following the events of the Great War. A single prototype model was completed in 2080 and was sent under the possession of Zax, the overseer computer that controlled Vault 51. When John Henry Eden took control, the East Coast Enclave recovered the plans for the Hellfire power suits and began production. Hellfire armor was mass-produced in 2278 for the Enclave's sinister quest for power. The suits were part of the Enclave's second phase of their plan for the American wasteland. They meant to purify the wasteland and be rid of mutation and radiation. The Hellfire power armor was highly resistant to extreme heat, and the wearers were equipped with flamers meant to unleash hellfire on wasteland, hence the name. Excavator Power Armor, or EX-17. Now we're stepping into the territory of non-traditional power armor designs that were not mass-produced by government sanctions. The X-17 model was developed before the Great War by the Appalachian Garahan Mining Company. The excavation power armors were meant to be used for mining and not as weaponry. They were created so human miners could keep up with the increasing number of robot mining machines. The X-17 models were primarily used in the Appalachian mines, since they were rigged up with servos, which provided more strength and increased carrying capacity. Upgrades to the original prototype allowed the operator to detect various kinds of ores while mining. Raider Power Armor. Following the Great War, disjointed segments of power armors were scattered across the wasteland. The psychotic survivalist group of raiders managed to collect these parts and piece together their own version of the power armor, mostly held together with scrap metal. Pretty creative, right? While these bits of armor were irreversibly damaged, they still provided to be bulky pieces of high-quality metal. The scavengers created these depowered metal armor suits with scrap material from abandoned T-45 and T-51 models. A variant of the Raider Power Armor was the Overboss Power Armor found in Fallout 4's DLC, Nuka World. NCR Power Armor, another PA variant that's used without its actual power. After the Great War, a group of new California Republic settlements waged war against the Brotherhood of Steel. As the Brotherhood retreated, the NCR gathered and intensely modified the remaining power armor frames. Without the fusion cores, the power armors were bulky pieces of equipment that felt like carrying a Brahmin on your back. But props to the NCR for snatching these from the Brotherhood, even though the armors proved to be ineffective. ATOM Power Armor. Lastly, we have the unique power armor created by the last son of Adam, a character that never appeared in the games, but in the Fallout sourcebook titled Winter of Adam. He modified an X-01 prototype and got it decked out with crystals and runes, essentially making it a weapon of mind control. The last son could detect nearby animals, their state of mind and health levels. The suit allowed him to gain control of anyone's mind, including robots. The coolest features of this bedazzled X-01 variant are the biochemical tendrils in place of arms. What is the power source of the suit? The year 2066 saw the unveiling of the first ever fusion cell. Standardized fusion cores were developed for both military and commercial applications before the Great War. Fusion cores are nuclear batteries meant for long-term use. Before the war, fusion cores were used to power machinery, generators, automobile vehicles, and such. During the Sino-American conflicts, the US military utilized the potential of the fusion cores to fuel their power armors and Gatling laser weapons. However, in previous Fallout games, it was said that the power armors were energized by the TX-28 microfusion packs that would allow the suits to function optimally for over 100 years. Players aren't a fan of how quickly fusion cores exhaust themselves in Fallout 4. The fusion cores last around 20 minutes in real time, which is 10 hours in-game. The power is drained quicker due to AP usage, sprinting, and VATS. The Gatling laser weapons utilize fusion cores as their primary ammunition. Each gun holds the capacity of 500 shots per fusion core. If the player possesses the highest level of the nuclear physicist perk, they can also eject the fusion core core from the armor and use it like a deadlier version of a frag mine. We are familiar with the standard version of the fusion core in Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. Another variant in Fallout 76 is the ultrasight core that harnesses energy from the material ultrasight. The Lost Hills headquarters and the Appalachian chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel brainstormed the concept of an ultrasight PA. The ultrasight material would provide the operator with increased radiation resistance. An ultrasight core can also be paired with an ultrasight power armor and ultrasight Gatling laser guns. How does the power armor enhance the wearer's muscular strength, endurance, and resistance? A power armor is a terrifying sight to behold. It's essentially undiluted power in the hands of the operator. Players can climb into power armor suits by using grips located on the inside. It isn't confirmed how the players use headlamps and Pip-Boys, but it's theorized that the suits are fitted with user input devices. All the traditional power armors have internalized servo motor systems, which are rotary actuators that allow the wearer to move at a broader range and have precise control and velocity. The power armor enhances the wearer's strength, trauma resistance, and radiation protection. There are built-in hydraulic shock absorption systems that allow players to jump from extreme heights without any damage and land with a resounding thud. Obviously, the survivable heights of these armors differ from model to model. For instance, the T-45 could absorb up to a 100-foot leap, and this kept increasing progressively. A few of the advanced power armor suits can also recycle human waste, which allows the wearer to remain in the suit for longer periods of time. The enhanced strength allows the player to comfortably wear the power armor, although in Fallout 4, the power armor frame does most of the heavy lifting. The power armors in Fallout 4 are the bulkiest and most realistic, with the robotic frame making the operator at least 7 feet tall. The power armors in Fallout 4 increase the player's special attributes from the limit of 10 to 14.
Be a lovely day. A bright new sun will sun.
What kind of physical training or conditioning is recommended for wearers to operate the power armor optimally? The Fallout show did a great job of depicting Maximus' clumsiness while using the T-60 power armor for the first time, cause he drove that thing like a damn shopping cart. It was made clear that operating a power armor realistically would require a certain level of training or basic theoretical knowledge regarding its functioning. In the first Fallout game of 1997, only 2 suits exist. Talus, a paladin, wore one from the Brotherhood of Steel from the Lost Hills. At the same time, the players can assemble their own power armor at the maintenance bay. This worn suit can be upgraded at the settlement of Aditum. Given the available technology of the first Fallout game, the power armor suits weren't as interactive. Fallout 2 was generous with its power armors for players, with unlimited amounts being sold by the San Francisco vendors. Players could also find the T-51 in Navarro and APA Mk2 at the Enclave oil rig. Even with advanced power armor, no official training was required. Fallout 3 is where things changed considerably. Players had to receive mandatory power armor training from the Citadel in order to operate a suit. The Citadel was the headquarters of the Brotherhood of Steel in the capital Wasteland. The training was overseen by Paladin Gunny, who was the drill instructor for new initiates. Players would be able to equip the armor after completing the mission, Operation Anchorage. In Fallout New Vegas, the players must achieve the power armor training perk in order to operate a suit of armor. This training is only made available to the courier after they complete the missions, Still in the Dark and for Auld Lang Syne, which can be picked up in the Mojave Brotherhood of Steel's compound. The way traditional weapons have to be holstered while players wear a power armor is different since the range of movement is slightly restricted. Fallout 4 and 76 do not require training. We'll expand on how they change the power armors in a minute. How does the suit's design influence the wearer's thermal regulation, particularly during activities in extreme heat or cold? We've seen the power armors being operated in extreme environmental conditions, such as the blazing deserts and the Alaskan front lines. The power armor suits are wholly enclosed units, which are capable of thermoregulating the operators. It's often said that the power armor or its frame does most of the work for you. No heating or cooling systems would make the armor's metal death traps. The T-51 models contain cooling systems for a nuclear reactor, which means it also had to use those for the wearers. The power armor has built-in systems to recycle air through vents and keep the wearer cool or warm depending on external circumstances. Remember that all models of power armors across generations constantly underwent upgrades and improvements. In Fallout New Vegas, the onboard purification system recycled human waste in ways that kept the wearer cool. The suits used during Operation Anchorage were winterized T-51B units. In Fallout 4, players can wear their power armors deep under the surface of the water, proving that the suits can withstand harsh conditions. Even the advertising propaganda for the suits depict the power armor being used on the moon, which doesn't sound unlikely. What types of information does the power armor HUD display, and how is this data prioritized during combat and exploration? The heads-up display in Fallout 4 pops up as soon as the players step into their power armors, and it only slightly varies between the third and first-person view. The first-person view displays the status of the power armor on the left side, which depicts which parts are worn and those missing. The bottom left corner shows the health point percentage and radiation meter. In the bottom right corner, we see the action points percentage and the core gauge, which indicates the remaining power of the armor. Action points govern the number of things players can do in one combat turn, i.e. they control how often we can use the VATS and how long we can sprint for. The core gauge represents the energy reserves of the fusion core on which the suit relies. When the core gauge indicates the possibility of the suit running out of power, it's wise to stock up on fusion cores. Along the bottom and center of the screen lies the radar, which portrays enemy markers and directions. The third-person view is essentially the same, but all the displays are slightly smaller. After all, this comes down to personal preference, since some players find third-person to be more convenient, whilst first-person feels more immersive. One of the best power armor modifications in Fallout 4 is the targeting HUD, which can be acquired with the third rank of the Science perk. This mod can be applied to the power armor helmet. The mod highlights any living beings, containers, and collectible scrap items. It increases the visibility for players and even highlights items that are search tagged. Speaking of,
even till eternity.
what are the variety of mods available for each power armor component? First, let's talk about the various modifications that players can make to their power armor suits in Fallout 4. We know that all modifications require different types of material, which can be found throughout the Wasteland. So before you can begin having fun with mods, all the materials need to be collected through exploring and digging through piles of scrap. For instance, the explosive shielding mod requires adhesive, aluminum, and ceramic in specific quantities. All suits of power armor can be modified with different paint schemes that relate to the four main factions of the central storyline. Each modification grants the player an added bonus to their special stats, which stands for the attributes of strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck. The Minutemen paint can increase charisma when applied to the T-45 model. The Railroad paint increases perception when applied to the T-51 model. And the BOS offer 4 levels of paint jobs, all of which increase the strength of the T-60 models. The Institute paint job can be done only for X-01 models and increases intelligence. The Vault-Tec paint job can be applied to all models of the power armor and boosts charisma. A few other mods that players have enjoyed experimenting with since the game's initial release. The Core Assembly mod, which requires a rank of 3 in Science perk. It increases speed at which action points refresh. It can be applied to any model of power armor, but must be restricted to their torso. This mod can be bought at Adam Katz's Garage. Another mod that is extremely helpful in battle is the Medic Pump, which automatically injects stim packs when the player's health drops below 50%. The coolest and most popular modification in Fallout 4 is the Jetpack mod, which allows the player to propel themselves into the air using built-in jetpacks that feed off of action points.
Knight Titus of the Brotherhood of Steel, stand down or be cut.
How does Fallout 76 expand on Fallout 4's power armor system with new models and mods? The Fallout 4 power armor felt more like a vehicle than an actual suit that the player can wear. The power armors of Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 require no official training to be equipped. The power armors in Fallout 76 can be deployed using the player's Pip-Boy. In Fallout 76, the different components of the armor have their individual hit points, which are worn down over time. They exclusively own a player's power armor and disallows any other sneaks trying to operate it. Players can forgo ownership of their armor by dropping the frame. Unlike Fallout 4, 76 allows players to carry the power armor frame in their inventory, with the armored components still attached to the fusion core. This makes its use quite convenient. The game also offers several modifications for different components of the armor. A few of the helmet mods include retcon sensors, which are the most useful in player versus player situations, since they add a marker on top of the enemy's head and on the compass. This mod also supplants the use of stealth buoys, as the markers give away the player's position. Fallout 76 also shared the targeting HUD mod with Fallout 4. Then there's the VATS matrix overlay, which increases VATS precision by 10%. Torso modifications include the Blood Cleanser mod, which reduces the player's addiction to chems.
Why did you join the Brotherhood?
What are the differences between power armor in TV series and video games? In other words, how loyal is the TV show to its source material? So far, viewers and fans of the Fallout franchise are pretty impressed with the show's attention to detail. But does this extend to the accuracy of the portrayal of power armor? The fact remains that the showmakers were determined not to overpower the visual effects with CGI. They've done a pretty good job, as we see the power armors aren't computer generated, but are in fact actual suits. They were created by the same company that made all the MCU Iron Man suits, mostly seen worn by Maximus of the Brotherhood of Steel, along with the other knights. The power armor in the show exudes awesomeness, but we're still curious to know how they differ from the games. For instance, the show added cool voice modulators to the power armors, which help Maximus conceal his identity. The voice modulators make the BOS knights more intimidating. Secondly, the show portrayed the armor as more polished and newer looking than the games. A lot of suits survived the ravages of the Great War, a token of endurance they carry with them, but the armors in the show appear too shiny from the lack of use. The power armor's helmet got its own modification in the show, since the visor was upgraded so it can lift up, allowing the wearers to catch a breath of fresh air. The show also struck a good balance in the sizing of the power armors. As in previous Fallout games, the armor wasn't large and bulky, which stood in contrast to the armors in Fallout 4, which were absolute mammoths. There's also a slight discrepancy in the lore, since the show mainly features the T-60 model of the power armor, which was retroactively introduced in Fallout 3, but it has been suggested since then that the Brotherhood of Steel brought the T-60 models of power armors from the East Coast to the West, who were still stuck with the T-51 models. Marvelous verdict. All things considered, the power armor is the king of mobile weapons pre- and post-war. It's a sight familiar to all Fallout players, and now even viewers of the show. Power armors have had the most dynamic journey compared to any other weaponized equipment in the games. Its countless variations, created for their own purpose, were all inspired by the first government-sanctioned weapons of war. What else do you need other than a technologically advanced metallic power suit to brave the irradiated wastelands of the perished world? What would be the outcome of the war if power armors never existed? And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone!